Yeah, I mean, I on the recession, I'll probably leave that up to Rebecca. I feel like she's really good on the economy. Um, the one thing I do want to say as far as legalization goes, to what Jorge and Rebecca have said about the 11 million and the Dreamers, of course, like we see immigration as a justice issue and not necessarily like completely centered as an economic issue, right? And so what that does is that gives us space to really start to look at immigration. And let's take the Dreamers, for instance, and sort of say, yes, legalization, but we need to be a little bit careful that we're not just centering it on the economy, right? This is about people's lives, people's families. And just like Rebecca shared the story, about her mom, I'm an immigrant here too. I came as a refugee. And so really looking at immigration as uh, sort of a humanitarian protection for those that are fleeing, right? We still have a moral obligation on that. And I think that I just wanted to make that point in there. And then also with Jorge talking about mass criminalization and the challenging and the reckoning of white supremacy in this country. And if you think about it, I always like to think about the 60s in which black people in this country challenged white supremacy, which also got us the Civil Rights of 1965 and the Voting Rights Act, but also the Immigration Act of 1965, right? Which then changed the face of immigrants here, right? So in 1965, about more than 80% of immigrants were white people from Europe. And in about the 90s, that completely changed, right? Until what Rebecca said now, it's black and brown people coming from Africa, South America, Asia, that are coming into this country. And so the makeup of America and what an American looks like is vastly different. And we need to sort of look at that as saying, all right, well, what are the justice issues in America that we are talking about? And how does immigration sort of play a part in that? As far as to the question around COVID-19, the Black immigrant community is definitely wrapped up in that, right? Most Black immigrants that are workers work in the healthcare industry. Almost 3 in 10 of all Black immigrant workers work in the healthcare sector. And so this is also a space in which we're really looking at as like, all right, well, we need healthcare workers right now. Not necessarily the police, which we could talk about later if you guys want to get into that. But we need teachers right now, right? And these are spaces within our society that we all benefit, right, as a community. And so immigrants are also sewed into the textile and the fabric of this country. And so particularly Black immigrants, right? And our integration is not into white America, our integration is into Black America. And so I think the changes for us that we've seen in the last 5-6 months, outside of the recession, because I think we still got a couple months to really see what that looks like, and we're in the beginning of it, but really starting to understand is like, in our society, when we're going through a global pandemic, what are really, really important things that we need? And immigrants have been essential, as essential workers to be able to get this country back on track.
Yeah, well, what's really interesting I find in this moment of COVID is that COVID has laid bare this and really debunked the myth that immigrants take American jobs, right? I mean, we have an unemployment today of 10.5, 10.7, and like historic unemployment. Even given that, there are jobs, say, the field in which Abraham just named, plus food processing, crop production, frontline work, this essential workforce that, Americans, given the unemployment, high unemployment, the availability of workers are not there to fill. And so, one of our co-chairs is Paul Damari, who's the largest tomato grower in the country. He's from South Florida. He's a Republican donor. And he tells us, the most ironic thing is that he sees farm workers, undocumented workers, now are able to carry a card from DHS, the Department of Homeland Security, that names them essential, right? So that when they're stopped by the Florida Police Department, they cannot be deported now that they're protected because they're, an essential part of of our American food supply chain, as many American workers are able to work from home and be taken care of and well fed by these immigrant and undocumented farm workers. And we've seen that in the last 4 COVID packages, that even American citizens who are married to undocumented were left out of COVID relief. And this was a cruel decision made by President Trump. But we've seen that in this last round of COVID relief, you have Republicans like Marco Rubio and you have Republicans like David Perdue that are saying, no, we got to include this up to 2 million families, and Perdue's bill to allow immigrant physicians and nurses and physicians assistants to get on a path to a green card and citizenship. So in some sense that, given the kind of the last 2 nights of horrific, RNC and this narrative of immigrants, that like the reality is that COVID, in some sense, has really laid bare of who is on the front lines doing work, the difficult, dangerous, dirty work that native-born citizens won't do, even at 10.5% unemployment. So.